Everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting for November 10th, 2025, convening at 6 p.m. If I could get a mover and a seconder to call the meeting to order. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favour, carries unanimously. I'd be looking for a recommendation to go into closed in accordance with Section 239 2B of the Municipal Act to consider the Prime Minister's Path Community Steering Committee. If I could have a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favour, that carries unanimously, and we will reconvene and open at roughly 7 p.m. Be looking for a motion to reconvene and open at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. I want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant in the First Nation, Inuit and Métis people, we are reminded of the important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. There are additions to the agenda which were circulated on Friday, so I'd be looking for an adoption of the agenda as amended. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest, councillors? Seeing none, we don't have any general interest allegations, and we do have one specific interest allegation this evening to address council. And when we get to that point in the item, they will be called up. I believe that our individual is well aware of the rules, so I won't bother reading through those. We have no correspondence this evening, so jumping into the report to get the recommendation on the floor, may I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. Just before I turn it over to Director Okrafka, I do just want to acknowledge I think it was clear in the report. However, the report I did ask staff to put together, it's heavily based off of the councillor one-on-one input sessions that happened this summer related to budget, as well as a few other inputs from hearing, and it's really just meant to be a discussion point, but this by no means is preemptive of what the budget will look like. It's really just to be a point of topic and discussion to be able to get community input, because this again is a pre-budget input session, as our budget is not formally done. And I do want to also, on that note, I believe everyone in the room is aware that we hired KPMG to complete our budget, but I wanted to thank Ash very much for coming. He's the partner responsible for KPMG's group that is currently working on the budget for us, so he is here this evening to record and take back all information provided to his staff, as well as we do have our staff who are working on it. So again, tonight is really something that we haven't seen done, at least not recently, in Wilmot's history. We're trying to get information from residents as to what they would like to prioritize and hopefully see impact the budget before the budget is actually tabled. With that, I will quickly turn it over to Director Okrafka if he has anything he'd like to add.
Thank you, Mayor Salin. You did a great summary of everything I was about to say. So I will simply say that the report, as indicated by the Mayor, was requested as a discussion starter point. However you want to word that. There are 12 themes that were identified, including a number of things that would have come out of the councillor meetings in the summer, as indicated. The 2025 capital list was provided because this council has previously seen the same information presented last spring to you by the former treasurer. As you're aware, KPMG has been hired to work with staff and council and the mayor to prepare the budget. And Ashgar, who's a partner at KPMG, is here as well tonight. And staff are continuing to meet and engage with KPMG in drafting of the 2026 draft capital and operating budgets, which will then be provided by KPMG to the mayor for processing through this venue. So it's a brief overview of what's in front of you and the reasons behind it, and we will try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. So I did want to give council an opportunity if they would like to speak to anything that was in the report or have any questions or any items that did not make it into the report that you'd like to see. Again, not really looking for formal debate, more so just an opportunity for further input where we're all in a room together to be able to discuss as well as can ask questions. And I think Councillor Cressman had something to start with.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I guess to Director Okrafka. I guess my question is more that obviously we as a council and Township residents were shocked, I would say, by what was proposed last year as a increase, tax increase, and in retrospect, it was looked as being implemented over a 3-year period as compared to hitting ourselves and the residents over the head with the full increase. Do we have confidence that the numbers that the former treasurer put together were realistic, or is KPMG, do we have any indication that KPMG are going to find other numbers? I think we see the 9% that was included last year, the proposal for another 9%. Do we have confidence that that number is the right number, or do we have any inclination that it is in fact another number after we get into more depth into analysis?
Through you, Mayor Salonen, to Councillor Cressman. I think there's confidence as a starting point. I think KPMG will provide a lot of information to the Mayor and this Council as to opportunities and options within the budget in terms of what is required now and in the future. Certainly the second component identified within the report being the preparation of a 10-year capital plan with a calculator tool to determine if this then what is the outcome. I think that will be a very valuable tool for this council out of this process. So there's a number of concurrent processes that will generate probably enhanced council confidence and public confidence in both next year's budget and future budgets and expectations.
Did you want to add anything, Ash?
Not at this time, Mayor Salonen, but yes, our objective, just maybe one sentence, would be to make sure we have adequate support for all the estimated numbers for the budget, and obviously in collaboration with all the department heads and the mayor, we are looking to kind of propose a very robust and supported document along with, the team sitting here. So that's all I'll say. We're just in the early stages right now. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're off to a very good start. And I have confidence we'll be able to produce a very good budget for your review over the next few weeks.
Councillor Cressman?
Just as a follow-up through you, Mayor, is it Ash? Is that your?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Would that include the 10-year capital plan and the prioritization of the capital items in that 10-year capital plan? Or is it going to be kind of a start at that and it's going to have to be fully developed at some later date?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Cressman. Our priority is to complete the 2026 capital and operating budget first. My colleague, Bruce Beaver, who's another partner, he's been engaged as well to complete the 10-year plan, and it is being considered in tandem with the 2026 numbers for now, but the priority being the 2026 budget and right after the 10-year plan to be completed by Bruce and supported by my team.
Follow up again.
I don't want to dominate these questions, but we were informed, I think, last year that sometimes the 10-year capital plan is the only thing that is put together, and the operating budget from year to year is driven by the 10-year capital plan. And I think either I was misinformed or I had the impression that the operating budget is more important than the 10-year capital plan. I think I came to the realization last year that the 10-year capital plan is the most important document, and then the operating budget from year to year must support and is driven by the 10-year capital plan. Have I got that in the right priority, that the 10-year capital plan is sacrosanct, or whatever the proper terminology is, and the operating budget is secondary?
Oh, I understand your question, and please allow me to clarify. We do plan to have a draft 10-year budget which feeds into the operating budget, just to make sure, to your point, it's a very valid point, but finalization of the 10-year plan would be around January and February, but by December, early December, we should have enough information in the 10-year plan and the 2026 capital to feed into the numbers for 2026.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Wilkinson next.
Through the chair, I suppose as a follow-up to what Councillor Cressman was maybe building on, if I recall last year, and I don't have the number directly in front of me, I was just quickly looking to scan for it, but our capital program, I think based on what the forecast calls for versus what our actual funding envelope looks like, is there's a significant delta. So the question I have is what's being used from your end to sort of drive the prioritization? I mean, are we basing this on what's in the worst condition, what's affordable, and trying to make it fit within the funding envelope, or is it being based on our asset management plan? Like, how would you answer that? Because I don't think we have, just based on the forecast, $27 million worth of capital funding to actually spend this year. Do you care to clarify for me?
Yes, I would defer to maybe the directors and Director Krafka as well. But yes, all of the above, what you mentioned, in consultation with the department heads and the operations to understand where the capital needs are priority, and obviously understanding what can be deferred responsibly in the future to meet the funding needs. That would be our objective. And we're just starting to have those discussions, but it's going to be a very detailed discussion internally with the departments. And we've had a couple of meetings already with the fire chief, for example, to thinking through what's priority, what can be deferred without risking the operation. So we're considering all of those. But that's the information we have at this time. I would love to give you more answers, but we're starting out, and it's just a lot of detailed discussions right now to make sure what makes the most sense in terms of priority, and then operations as well.
Just following on the end of that, through you, Mayor Sallin and Councillor Wilkinson, I think it's fair to say that each director is able to work with KPMG to identify their priorities and the basis for those priorities. Combining all of that together is going to obviously have some conflict between community priorities, and I think ultimately the mayor and council will need to make some probably tough decisions as to what is prioritized when, because there are competing interests, be it infrastructure, be it rolling stock, be it facilities. So we're not there yet, but certainly the level of discussion between each department with KPMG is to build that out with as much detail as possible, and then the sum and substance of that would come back as part of that budget. But you, council and the mayor will certainly have difficult decisions to prioritize things, and those priorities obviously can change from year to year, right? So what you think is a priority for next year maybe gets bumped down in light of some emerging priority that we didn't see coming. So I think that goes to your asset management plan and all of those other detailed inputs that over time hopefully will be broadened and strengthened.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Through the chair, just as a follow-up to that, I appreciate the explanation from both of you. I guess as a follow-up, when we're looking at the potential for the funding envelope, are you approaching it from a point of view that you want to sort of identify what's absolutely critical, or are we looking to potentially make sure that we're fitting the projects within the funding envelope and the agreed upon increase that we had discussed last year? So are we looking at this from these are all the projects that need to be funded, and that's going to result in a large number or a large ask of the community, or is it going to be, this was last year's budget, this was the agreed upon increase that we look to phase in over time, and we're going to make our projects fit within that? Is there, or is that still up for discussion? Yeah, I guess that, to your point, what trumps what?
If I may respond, it's up for discussion for now. These are the discussions we're exactly having, Councilman Wilkinson.
Through the mayor, given the powers that have been given to municipal mayors through the amendments to the Municipal Act, that really is a question that only the mayor can determine. Like, in my sense is that the council and the community is understanding that the 26 capital budget will look like very much the same size as 25 plus 9%, because council had signaled that early this year. It really will be up to the mayor. Does she want to stick with that or make it something different than that?
So I suppose I can chime in and answer. Really what I have asked staff beyond this document, as well as the budget memo that I had circulated back, I think that was in July, to council and CLT, is I want both myself, but also as you guys are going to be seeing draft documents before it's tabled, I want us to all have the ability to see what is the ideal case of right sizing with priorities acknowledging the current context. So I'm leaving that to staff to really decide what that looks like coming forward, but then having the supportive information, and even in some of the documents I've already seen Ash's team have, I think you guys are going to be really pleased with the detail to explain each assumption made, then allowing us to make the decision on what priorities are we dictating. And so that's also part of the reason for having these input sessions, to hear from the community as to what they would also like to see prioritized, so that when we see the information come forward. But at this point, I've left the 9% in as kind of the general ask, because it's something that we as council agreed to already last year. If it turns out through numbers and looking at actuals and that's not the recommendation that comes forward, then that's something that we can decide as we're reviewing draft documents. But at this point in time, I just want to better understand the scope of what are the real numbers, what are the priorities now, and what makes sense as proceeding forward. So sorry, it's not a clear answer, but that's kind of my thinking on what I've been asking to, or anticipating to see. We will go to Councillor Dunstall next.
My question has already been asked and answered. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Martin, did you have your hand up earlier? No. I will ask councillors to do if you have anything.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make a quick comment before our delegation. This is, I believe, our fourth budget. Fourth different kind of way of doing it, fourth different treasurer, now with KPMG. I know I've been barking up the tree of I wanted to see more information as far as cost analysis, the costing of things, and the pros and cons of looking at services if we do decide to cut or et cetera. So I am encouraged by KPMG and Ash and his team for taking this on to hopefully we can see a more clear picture, more detailed breakdown of our finances, and not to say that we haven't had it in the past, but now we have a professional team that is going to be laser focused on this. So I am looking forward to this process as far as the breakdown and having the ability to find any efficiencies or things that we can identify that we can look at without burdening our taxpayers that much more. So that's my comment. I am looking forward to this, and my only thing I would say to KPMG is really dig deep into the finances and the numbers, and understand that our taxpayers are not a bottomless pit that we can just keep going back to, and we need to do some serious soul searching amongst us as a township and our organization to see where we can find efficiencies.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Cressman and then Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, this through you, Mayor, to Director Krafka again. This may be more center of the plate to what you do or did prior to assuming the additional duties, or anyhow. The question is, do we make a certain assumption of growth? We've approved subdivisions. We've put infrastructure in place, underground linear infrastructure in place for growth, and we realize there's been things that have complicated that, obviously, interest rates, inflation, and we see them maybe a little more are coming down to a more traditional level. So I guess a budget is impacted by development charges, and do we put a certain placeholder in for what we see as development, expected development in the upcoming year in terms of revenue generator?
Through you, Mayor Sallin and Councillor Cressman, development charges is a big component of the funding, in particular a lot of the infrastructure works. Our development charges bylaw is due to be updated. Through our official plan process, we had also included a financial piece to look at the costing of the infrastructure for future growth. That will then tie into the development charge update, which will then attempt to take all the pieces of information, be it the approved subdivisions, the timing of those, the infrastructure required for those, and generate an updated estimate of anticipated growth. So that's another component of the financing of the capital works and the long-term capital plan, the growth-related capital portion. And it would be our expectation or anticipation that that is something that would be completed towards quarter 3 and 4 of 2026 once we finalize some of these components leading up to that. So the official plan is a big part of that, and that is one of, as you're aware, I think next Monday night is a public meeting on that process.
Through the mayor, another element of the answer to Councillor Cressman's question is what about the assessment that comes from new development? So we would never assume that, but once a year, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation will give us a number as to say, from the new development that's taken place over the past year and which has been assessed, here's what you can expect in terms of new assessment from new growth. So we'll get a number from MPAC, which is the best they have as of the week before we finalize the budget.
Councillor Wilkinson, did you have your hand up again? Okay. Any other questions or comments then, councillors? Also, again, keeping in mind at any point you can send emails or connect with myself or staff on this. Yes, Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, for the benefit of the public, one question I've been receiving quite often is, this is a different process. However, there's the session this evening, which we can see is not as nearly full as we had the last time. Well, we have a delegate, yes, one, which is disappointing. My question is, in the future, what can the public expect in terms of their ability to give feedback? I mean, we know that there's a 30-day window that opens once the budget is published, which I anticipate will be the first look that the public get at the documents. What kind of feedback are they going to have in a public forum or an open session such as this?
Absolutely. So under the new legislation, to your point, once the document is made public, then the timer of, I think it is a 30-day timeline automatically begins. So again, really looking for input before to help shape the document. And then once the document is tabled, it'll be like any other budget meeting that general public are able to come and delegate on and can comment and add their opinions or feedback to the budget. Of course, they can also reach out. They can reach out to myself. However, at that point, the most beneficial group would be to reach out to councillors, because councillors can then choose to make amendments to the proposed budget. So there will still be the public meeting when the budget is tabled, that we can get public input, and then council has the opportunity to make decisions. However, I don't foresee it being like in the past, a yay or nay of going through each item. For example, when we go through the capital projects, that will be done beforehand. And again, that's based off of the legislation, is once the budget is tabled, it's only amendments that can be made versus decision, so it would, require amendment change. Yes.
Through the mayor, as a procedural point, will we follow the same procedural bylaw we have for any regular meeting or committee meeting? Is that, will a budget be accessible to the public 10 days in advance of the presentation to council in a formal setting at the meeting, in which my interpretation would be that is when the 30 days starts? Would that be correct?
So interpretation on that varies depending on what lawyer or what mayor you ask. I foresee it being the same because the document should be dated for the date of the meeting. So it would be like any other meeting, the materials would be provided in advance. That's how I foresee it going, unless we get told essentially by the province, no. That is how I foresee it, so that both council and the public have that allotted time like any other meeting to engage with it. Actually, one thing just to note later on in today's meeting, and I would foresee it being an option at the other meeting, is I was going to call if there were other people in the audience who wanted to provide input, but noting that that is not our normal procedural bylaw, but that this is a special scenario and this is in particular a special meeting, probably would be open to seeing that also be an option. But yes, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you for clarifying. And then as a follow-up, do you have a process in mind or a number of meetings that you would like to see take place after the budget is published? Because, again, keeping in mind there's that 30-day window, do we anticipate 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings? Because my understanding is that budget or council will not be voting on a formal budget package and passing it. It essentially hits 30 days and it becomes the budget. So how many meetings could the public reasonably anticipate to take place between the published date and the end of that 30 days?
So staff have put some holds in our calendar for the upcoming month and a bit to allow for potential meetings. You are correct that the legislation is silent on council actually voting to pass the budget. It is once the 30 days happens and the amendment and veto period is over, then the budget is as was presented unless otherwise amended. However, in my research and looking at other municipalities that have had strong mayor's powers before this round, in particular looking at the city of Kitchener, what their council has done and I think has worked pretty successfully is at the budget day, so the presentation of the budget, there is a motion that council can choose to adopt, which is, and please don't quote me on the wording, I'm speaking in spirit of what it is, the wording might look different, but in essence, it's council choosing to adopt the mayor's budget and then direct staff to implement it as adopted. I like the idea of giving council that opportunity because it gives you an opportunity to either vote in favor of it or to vote against it. But also it gives an opportunity that it could be deferred pending additional meetings. So really I don't have a definitive number of set meetings. It'll kind of depend on where we as a council stand on budget day, but certainly leaving opportunity and room should council feel that they want to get more public input or something really compelling that we hear at the budget meeting makes us want to defer that. I am open to what that looks like. This is a new process for us and I don't have all the answers for it, but that's the intent and the process I'd like to follow. And speaking with City of Kitchener councillors, they all feel that that process has worked for them. And they also, again, what you guys will get is receive draft budget documents before they're made public and have input on them as well. And that is fully the intent once we get to that stage with KPMG too. So I hope that answers potentially more meetings, but really depends on council, but there's the opportunity for them. Yes, Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just want a clarification. The 2/3 to veto, is that apply for the budget as well or no? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I know what you're referring to. I would maybe look to our clerk because I don't have that part of the legislation memorized.
Through Mayor Salonen to Councillor Dunstall, I don't have that information readily available. However, it is 2/3 majority for a vetoing of an amendment. But I mean, to propose an amendment, if the mayor vetoes an amendment made by council, then it requires a 2/3 majority to override the mayor's decision. However, with respect to the budget, I will have to follow up.
Yes, Councillor Cressman.
Yes, through you, Mayor. One of the things that was apparent in the 20 or 25 people that came out to our town hall meeting about the budget in the New Dundee Community Centre was that historically other municipalities that have had strong mayor powers have had documents that a 10-year capital plan in place with numbers that with prioritization associated with it. And we're entering this process and mimicking what other municipalities, and we're in a spot with, well, you know as well as anybody, with our eyes with documents that aren't there, with 10-year capital plans that have limited asset prioritization associated with it. And that's not to criticize our staff at all, but it's just the reality. And so the maturing of the process over time and having the financial documents that are needed will hopefully inform the public in a much better way, and it's certainly, I hope, inform council so that they are in a better position to come to this whole process prepared to engage in an intelligent manner. So I think we're learning as we go here, and the textbook hasn't been written to the extent that we would like, and we're facing the test and having not studied because it just, the information wasn't there. And to be honest, I don't envy you, Mayor, in what you have to do. So I hope KPMG can pull a rabbit out of a hat on this one. So maybe it is pull some money out of the hat. Maybe that would be a better.
I don't know if money's going to be pulled out of the hat. However, I can say that I do have great confidence both in our staff and in KPMG staff. Just from the few things that I've seen, and really so far it's only been the mayor and council budget that I've seen, but even just the document of the Excel that they were showing and the questions that they were asking, I think we're going to have the most detail that, at least in both my history on this council as well as past documents that I've seen that past councils have gotten, I think we're going to at least get the most information that we've ever had to be able to make the best informed decision at the time. However, recognizing, like you said, we don't currently have all those documents, and that's why this process feels a bit unnatural and a little bit rocky, but it's also trying to set up and figure out the right process as we continue to proceed and tweak and alter things as we go. But yes, the end goal is that we will, by the end of this term, be leaving the next council with a long-term financial plan, a pretty sound, solid budget from 2026, and more documents to be able to work off of that our staff can continue to work on and implement as well. Any other questions or comments at this time, council? Okay, seeing none. We will, as I did note, we do have one registered delegation, so I'll call on Barry Wolf. Barry, thank you for joining us. I think that this is your document here. You will have 7 minutes. No, not the correct document?
I'm looking at page 1. Why am I looking at page 12?
Oh, if you'll just give us one moment there. I think that they're just getting it tech set back up there.
guide council to look at the highlighted areas, because this is my script, and I gotta go fast. 7 minutes, one person. I hope there's no World Series that you gotta get to, and you're a little patient with me, 'cause
All right.
Okay. Good evening, through the head of council to councilors and to my fellow taxpayers. I've been here several times, and you know my common theme. My common theme is how does Wilmot consult with residents and taxpayers when making its decisions, and 2, how do you spend our tax money? That's my common theme for years. Councillor Cressman related the past practice process, and the highlighted areas there indicate that the guy that pays the bill has had a lot of participation in the process in the past. And we've always been able to look at a budget and be able to analyze it, do a gap analysis between previous ones, and respond to it. There's nothing this year. At the bottom in small print, there's no operations budget, there's no capital budget, there's no utilities budget, there's no asset management plan, there's no risk analysis. Click. The agenda attachment A had a list of 379 wish lists. I'm old enough, that's the Eaton's catalog. We used to do a wish list. Kids would cut them out, make a pile, right? Remember that? We're going back, right, Lillian? Sorry, Councillor Dunstall. This is a wish list of 379 items. Later on, I got a submission on comments on 28 of them. I got 13 recommendations, but I'm really disappointed that there seems to be 2 groups as I'm sitting here. Those in the know and those don't know what's going on. You're like me. You don't know what the process is going to be, and I heard you say you don't know what's going on. I'm really frustrated. Do you guys not talk to each other? I'm really frustrated. Maybe that's why nobody's here. Nobody listens. Click. Let's dig into the weeds. The OMA provides the opportunities of powers and duties subject to the regulations, in accordance
Barry,
with the regulations.
Today's meeting is on the document before us and on what you would like to see in the budget, not on process. If you can please stick to items that you would like to see in the budget. Again, this is a pre-budget consultation.
Let the record show that the head of council has denied the opportunity to a citizen to comment on a process which is extremely frustrating to me, and I would imagine, and I hope, to you. I cannot comment on that. I can't comment on that. Oh, I'll mention this. As a person, I like you. We've had fruitful personal discussions where we've agreed to agree and where we've agreed not to agree. I believe our relationship has been professional and respectful. You appear to mean well. But in this budget process, I do not like your actions, I do not like your process so far, and I don't like the way this is going. I'm going to get stuck with a bill, and this is my only chance to talk about how this gets done, and you're refusing to let me explain why. When I grew up in Quebec, we had an expression. Okay, let's get to the comments I've got about specifics, and then I'll get back to my closing comment. Would you look to page 8? Okay, here's the list of 28 items I've pulled out of that microscopic document called the Attachment A. I had to take an old Reader's Digest magnifying glass to read that sucker. I asked for it to be enlarged. It still prints the same size. I can see why nobody's here. You can't read it. Okay, I'm going to go down to number 57. No, let's go to the top. Number 9. That's what you want to hear? Here we go. The new Hamburg Arena reconstruction, $1 million. I think there should be branding to finance that. Station 3, the fire equipment, totally essential. People are interested in potholes, they're interested in snowdrifts, they're interested in places to play. And we need fire protection, but we haven't got the money to do that right now. We need to defer that until we get these unrecognized development charges in place. Number 57, corporate branding. I want you to move that forward from 27 to this year. Third ice pad, after the debt's been paid, and use DCs and corporate branding. The New Hamburg Arena reconstruction, I'd love to see that go forward before a third pad. But after the debt is paid by development charges and with branding. 288 and to 293, technology investments. Make those move earlier. If you move those up front, it's an investment in efficiency and effectiveness, and you don't need to hire as many. The development charges study, move it to 26. Put it in this budget and get that done. I've got a comment about number 334. It's the storm management facility retrofit. It's $595,000 to accommodate growth. Why is there growth? Because Tri-Mennonite County Homes is expanding NIFU. Why are they doing that? They've done it with a deferment, a waiver of DC charges that 2 people out of 6 on this council voted to approve. The rest had a conflict of interest, and 2 out of 6 approved the waiver of about $1 million in income. Now we've got a $595,000 charge for the waste management to facilitate that. The total lost or total expense to the revenue flow is $1,595,000. Where's the million coming from? It's not coming from development charges. It's coming out of my pocket and everybody else who pays the taxes. My recommendation, I love NIFU. This is not a comment about the value or the use of NIFU. It's a wonderful facility. It provides a terrific service. It employs local people and it pays taxes. But it's a private corporation. It is not a capital asset of this corporation. It is not a financial liability to Wilmot Township. That motion has to be reversed. This council has to say, NIFU, we can't afford you. You've got to find your own way to finance that. You just no longer lost $1 million over the term, and you got $595,000 to pay for the expansion, which is going to occur anyway. They can finance it by promissory notes from their community. And we don't have to pay for that. We are now ahead by $405,000. 2 out of 6 cost us $1 million. That's not democracy.
Barry, your time is technically up, but I'll give you another minute.
There's nobody here. Give me a break. Okay, let's go to number 10. Increase the commercial industrial tax base to reduce the load on residential and agricultural assessment. How do you do that? Hire an economic development officer this year. The person has to pay their way as they go. I've got a recommendation of Cache Homes, put in jobs as they develop the homes, jobs, homes, jobs. You've heard that one from me before. Collect and use the development charges to finance. Investigate branding opportunities. KPMG, focus on number 10 and 11, because I have not been able to find anywhere where the OMA, which states yearly budget, local municipalities, they must provide for the cost of any abatement or discount of taxes. That's the $1 million from NIFU. I don't know where it is. I'm asking you to find it. We're not able to defer that. Page 11. No spending on Castle Kilbride. You need to readjust your FTE complements. You need to reduce the number of external consultants hired. This is off budget. but any reports, including the budget report, should go through your communications specialist first, because the way the reports are communicated, it's written by, reviewed by, presented by the same person. It should be reviewed by the communications specialist. There's some minor requests that you've been receiving over a period of time. 5,000 here, 5,000 there, can't afford it. All staffing FTE must be allocated by department in an operating budget. In previous years, it was a way of financing, and they were appearing in capital projects. They were allocating FTE to capital. Can't be done. Here's the process. There we go. Bold yellow.
So
I asked the head of council, this is my final statement, to make it clear on the record tonight that the 26 budget process will include opportunities for taxpayers to provide feedback after the mayor's budget is received in a proposal from KMG in a consultation process prior to it being adopted, and that councillors may individually or in cooperative concert consult with taxpayers at public town hall meetings prior to a proposed budget being voted on or declared final. This is not a process where one person makes the final decision. That's not democracy, that is autocracy. I want to see. I'm asking you to make that commitment, yes or no, and if you say nothing, I know what your answer is. Back to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
thank you, Barry. And I'd remind the gallery, please, to remain quiet. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I think there's a few things of clarity that wants to be had in terms of the process. I believe I've answered to council already today as to what that process is going to look like. Regardless of if you think it's my decision or not, it's the interpretation that I and legal counsel that I have sought has seen. This legislation does not actually speak to it being voted on. It is once the budget is tabled and 30 days passes and there are no amendments or vetoes, or there are amendments and vetoes, then that budget is as it stands. I am trying to introduce other avenues. I can appreciate your frustration. To be honest, I don't even agree from a policy perspective that strong mayor's powers is an effective policy. However, I'm doing with everything in my knowledge and information to proceed forward with it. I can appreciate that people will disagree with how I have actions on that, but I very much appreciate you coming tonight and providing your input. I did just want to turn to...
You spoke to process, and I invite you to read my full delegated script because you didn't let me read it. And I have pointed out areas in the legislation where budget is different from regular strong mayor powers. There is specific section 10.6 which says
I'm very well aware of it, and like I said, have had legal advice.
You control that process, and you can choose to not follow the provincial dictate. And there's no deadline, timeline in the legislation. It doesn't have to be 30 days. There's no deadline.
Thank you for your interpretation. I did want to go over to Director Okrafka specifically in terms of the NIFU DCs to provide clarity because there was some inaccuracies in that.
Through you, Mayor Salinan, just to reiterate to council, I believe council is aware, but following the decision to, for lack of a better word, exempt NIFU home from development charge payment, at that meeting it was made clear that that would have to be funded by the tax base. Several weeks thereafter, the province actually amended the Development Charges Act to require municipalities to exempt nursing homes from the payment of development charges. So whether the decision was in this council chambers or made by the province, the end result was exactly the same, that development charge would not be payable by an IFU for their new home, and that the offset would be funded through the tax base. So that is provincial law and not specifically negotiable. So rescinding your resolution relative to that wouldn't have any effect. The development charge still is not payable by NIFU.
Were there any questions for our delegate? Okay, seeing none. Again, thank you for joining us, Barry. As I did make reference earlier in this meeting, although it's not a part of our regular procedural bylaw, as chair, I do have the ability to see if there are other members in attendance who have not registered to delegate, yet would like to provide input on what they would like to see in the budget. Again, this is on items in the budget, either added or removed, however, not on process. Is there anybody in the gallery that would like to add comment? Yes, please, if you can come up, just state who you are, and then you can provide your comment for what you'd like to see or not see in this budget.
Good evening, Mayor Salonen, members of council, staff, and employee of KPMG. I was not familiar with how this presentation would go this evening. I just understood there was an input meeting. That's why I'm here. So I don't have as formal a document as the previous speaker had. I just have some general comments. Specifically, I would hope that all the individuals that are involved in preparing the budget concentrate on cost cutting. I'm finding these requests for tax increases greater than the rate of inflation. And last year, when staff suggested possibly property taxes increasing by 50%, this was ludicrous to me. Once again, I did not look through the documents ahead of time to be able to comment specifically on what things to remove and not remove, so I apologize for that. I'm going to lose my train of thought here. Thank you to yourself, the mayor, and to Councillor Sidhu for speaking into the mic. I heard it much more clearly when you spoke into the mic, and thank you for that. And also, Councillor Sidhu had mentioned that in the past 4 budget processes, there were 4 different methodologies, I don't know if that's the right term, to use as a basis to come up with the budget. I'm wondering if now at the present time, and I don't know if I'm using the right possible budgeting terminology, but if there's zero-based budgeting, instead of starting out with amount and adding on a percentage onto that, start at the base and determine right from zero how much whatever that capital or operational expense should be. I think that's all I can think of right offhand. I don't know if you have any questions anybody wants to ask me right now.
Councillor Dunstall?
Thank you, through Mayor. Thank you. I know you hadn't really prepared, so thank you for bringing those forward. I just wanted to suggest that I know you probably have more things that you're going to think about when you go home and think, I should have said this, or I should have said that. By all means, you can send an email to council, and we all get it, and we all get an opportunity to read it and see if you had any more additional things that you wanted to talk about for the budget. So I just want to put that out there for you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin?
Through you, Mayor Salonen, I appreciate you coming forward. I didn't hear your name. Would you be able to state your name, please?
Oh, yes, sorry. Richard Pfeiffer. Last name is spelled... Okay, this is my joke. I don't know if it's funny. If you know the actress Michelle Pfeiffer, okay, so sometimes I say I'm better looking than her. But anyways, so it starts P, like in the word pizza, F like father, E like Easter, I like Ivy, F like father, L like lovely, E like Easter. Pfeiffer, 7 letters for the last name. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
And you are my Ward 2 councillor. Yes. I've contacted you before. I thank you for, I thanked you in an email one time before for one action you had taken, so I just wanted to thank you again at this present time.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to serve. And I will say this much, I mean, don't feel bad about coming, not being totally prepared or having any documents available. The only document available is a draft 10-year capital plan from last year. So I think a lot of the commentary and what you're hearing this evening is that we are sitting here wondering some of the same things that citizens are wondering is exactly where we're going or what the budget's going to look like. And I concur, a zero-based budgeting process would be absolutely ideal. I don't think we're going to be fortunate enough to get that, but I agree with you 100%. And if KPMG is taking note, cost cutting is absolutely essential. I think it's a drum I've been beating for the last 3 years and would like to see that taken into account. So thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate your time. And don't feel like you were underprepared. There really wasn't much to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate you coming in this evening. And both to yourself and everyone else, as Councillor Dunstall noted, you can reach out to council, but you can also reach out to budget@wilmot.ca, and that also goes directly to staff. That's for you and anyone who would like to add additional input into budget items or things to look at.
Great. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in attendance this evening that wanted to take a moment? Okay, seeing none. I will call the vote, keeping in mind this is just to receive for information, as well as I know staff and Ash have been taking diligent notes the whole evening. So all those in favor of receiving for information, and that carries unanimously. We have no notices of motion this evening. I just have two quick announcements. The first one, I wanted to note and say thank you to everybody in the community, in particular our Legion, who has been involved in the Remembrance Day services that have already happened and that are going to be happening tomorrow. Including tonight. We have a group of air cadets who are currently holding a vigil at our cenotaph in New Hamburg, and they are in 15-minute shifts, and they will be holding vigil all evening until tomorrow morning, and our Legion is kindly hosting those in between their breaks. So really appreciate them being out there, and that leads into my second announcement, reminding everyone tomorrow is Remembrance Day, and we do have the New Hamburg service. The service will start with the parade, which is leaving at, I believe, about 10:15 a.m., meeting at the cenotaph for 10:30, and then down to the New Hamburg Arena for the formal service at 11 a.m. So hope to see many of you out there if you're able to make it. Were there any other announcements this evening, councillors? Okay, seeing none. We are going to, and I have the wording here. So, Council did not complete its business in closed session, therefore it's necessary to reconvene in closed at this point in time. So I'd be looking for a motion to go back into closed, and it's under section 239(2)B, again to further discuss the Prime Minister Path Community Steering Committee. So moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favour? That carries unanimously, and we will return to do our final bylaws and adjournment at the time that we are finished closed. Thank you again to everyone who joined this evening, and just again a reminder on budget@wilmot.ca, or you can reach out to any or all members of council as well to continue to see inputs into the process and the outcomes. Thank you. Looking for yet again another motion to reconvene and open, this time at 8:47, moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Our business arising from closed is that staff proceed as directed. I'd be looking for a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor, that carries unanimously. Confirmatory bylaw is attached and to be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. May I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favor, carries unanimously. And adjournment. Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor, and that carries. Thank you very much.